what do you think kind of measures should people take to beef up their home security before using a gun?
So like cameras are a big thing, but when it comes to cameras, you want to have them visible, right? You don't want to have hidden cameras because you want people to see them and to know that they're being recorded. Even something as simple as having a sign, right? You get an ADT sign you stick in your yard.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't afford security,
but
you can afford a sign off of eBay or Amazon. There's such a big irresponsibility to the gun owner that buys their firearm, they keep it in the nightstand, maybe they shoot once every few months or so. You're not doing yourself a justice. You know, in a situation like a home invasion scenario, no one's going to rise to the occasion. They're going to fall to the lowest level of training.
Perry Yee, what's up, dude?
Not too much. Appreciate you having me back.
Got Navy SEAL on the podcast number 2. Excited to have you back and talk a little bit about some current events. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and your company, Fortified Measures.
Sure. Yeah. So, like you mentioned, I was a former Navy SEAL. So I served with SEAL Team 7 here in San Diego. I got out of the military back in 2011. And from 2014 to now, I actually started teaching at a close quarters combat school. So we were teaching civilians, law enforcement, military, all close quarters techniques, and it was strictly force on force, meaning we were using training tools that had a projectile to where you were actually getting shot at while training, which in my opinion is hands down the best way of training, because you're going to learn a lot about yourself and how you're actually going to react in a gunfight. You know, you don't get that experience when you're out on the range with live fire, or even going through like a shoot house shooting at paper targets. You know, you need that that constant threat that's gonna, I think, elevate your training and skill set. So I was doing that for a few years, and so from 2014 to about 2017, you know, we were training 3 to 4 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week for years. So
with simunition rounds,
the consistency was there. You know, I've never been so shot up in my life. You know, even like playing paintball as a kid. You know, so great training. More consistent than I ever was on active duty. So definitely picked up a lot. And the person I was learning under, this guy, Dave Maynard, he was a retired SEAL, and then had 10 plus years as a GRS contractor with the CIA. He was still operating in combat zones into his late 60s.
Damn.
Yeah, the guy's just a freak of nature. I'm actually going to train with him next weekend. So
nice.
Still getting after it, but I learned a lot from him, and took aspects that when I was active, things that worked, things that didn't work, and kind of changed up, things that I do and in what I teach now. So my company, Fortified Measures, we are local here within San Diego County, and what we do is we focus on the home defense aspect for the everyday civilian.
Yep.
So what it is, it's a traveling service. So I come to your door, and with all of the training tools needed, we use everything that's completely safe. They're all, gas-powered rifles, pistols with interactive targets. So it's a little bit realistic, but you have less safety precautions that you would at a live fire range.
Yep.
But we go over ways to make you better as a protector and the leader of your house, and go over certain aspects as far as teaching you how to beef up your home.
Yep.
To make it less desirable to the criminals on the outside, and but hopefully just give people a peace of mind, then the confidence that they're going to be able to protect themselves and their family in a hopefully unlikely situation that they get caught up in a home invasion scenario.
Yep.
So that's what I do full time now. And so we've been going now for a couple of years. It actually started once the riots and everything started happening.
Yeah.
It was born from that. Just people reaching out to me, that, hey, could you come teach me how to shoot and teach me how to protect my home, stuff like that. So the business was built out of that. And so
right.
Unfortunately, it's the time we live in. And as you see on the news and social media, things are not getting better, and they're not going to get better. And so once you accept that fact, then it's time to kind of think about next steps.
Right. Yeah. And guys, I hired Perry a year, close to 2 years ago now. We started, and his training is phenomenal. So if you guys are interested or even have the thought of it, reach out to Perry and Fortified Measures, because it's 100%. Everybody needs this, and there's such a demand for it too, because unfortunately what's going on. And especially if you live in a major city or a place like San Francisco, like
get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
if you can get out of a major city.
So what do you think about for the average homeowner, like alarm systems? Like what, before somebody gets through the door, what do you think kind of measures should people take to beef up their home security before using a gun?
Great question. So, all right, you got to take in consideration, the mindset behind these people that are committing these crimes. They're going to look for the path of least resistance. And if you give them any type of challenge to even get into your home, it's not worth their time to spend time trying to get into yours when they can easily just move on.
Right.
Unfortunately, you don't want to be able to, you don't want to send threats to somebody else. But a couple of things you can do as far as how like measures go is, you mentioned security systems. So, there's a few different security systems out there that you can get, whether it's like ADT is probably the biggest one.
Mm-hmm.
So like cameras are a big thing, but when it comes to cameras, you want to have them visible, right? You don't want to have hidden cameras because you want people to see them and to know that they're being watched, they're being recorded.
Right.
Even something as simple as having a sign, right? You get an ADT sign you stick in your yard.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't afford security,
you
can afford a sign off of eBay or Amazon. So something like that can be a great deterrence when it comes to like windows, thinking about landscape. Looking around your house, like you have the ability to put some type of thorny bush outside of a window, or something that they're going to have to maneuver through, make some noise in order to get to a window or to a door. A big one is if you guys have a dog, or even if you don't have a dog for any reason, having something as small as a dog bowl and toys outside for them to see, and then it gives off the illusion that that you do have a dog or something that might alert once they come to. And then there's things inside the home, something as simple as taking, if you have sliding doors and windows, taking wooden dowel or PVC pipe, putting them in the tracks to make sure that the doors can't be open even if they're unlocked, or windows can't be open. So if you give them the choice to where they're going to have to physically break something to get into your home, if you are home, that's hopefully is enough of an alert to give you time to either get to your firearm, grab your family, get to a certain room, or whatever procedures you guys have into place. But it just gives you a little bit of extra time.
Right.
And then, but again, so we can talk about it here in a minute. But there's a lot of different groups right now in San Diego County that are very sophisticated, and they're doing a lot of burglaries in a lot of the nice areas of San Diego as well. And so, they're driving around in nice cars so that they don't stand out. They are doing their homework. They're watching people's schedules. They know when people are home and people aren't home. They have tools like Wi-Fi jammers to
flippers.
Yeah.
Have you seen the flippers?
Yeah. Yeah. So they're to take care of your security systems. They're actually scaling. If you have a two-story home, they're scaling walls to get up to second stories, because they're most likely don't have securities through second story windows and things like that. So they're very smart in what they do, but the downside is they're in groups, right? So you're looking at 4 or 5 plus people. That's including a driver. And so now again, they've been really good with making sure that people aren't home. They're doing their robberies. They know what's expensive, what's cheap.
Right.
They've even one of the groups that actually we were just talking about this, that was caught and released. They would even come across firearms in the home when they would leave the firearms untouched, to make sure they don't escalate that. But either way, so now you're looking at a scenario where maybe they think you're not home, and there's you leave the house, maybe your wife is home alone or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a break-in, you're looking at multiple threats.
Right.
So you got to consider that, a home invasion doesn't mean you're going to have one person maybe it's one person cracked out of their mind.
Yeah.
But the reality is, especially here within San Diego, is you're going to be looking at multiple threats in the home.
Right. Okay. So now I want to talk about something that a lot of people overlook. So people that maybe aren't trained in firearms, don't have any kind of military or any of that kind of background. A lot of people buy firearms and they think, cool, I'm good, but they don't get the training. So even if they do go to a range and they can shoot perfect little groups and they're amazing. When it comes under stress and you have all these stress hormones running through your body, adrenaline, all of that stuff, how do you get somebody to be competent when it goes down? Because, as the song says, when the shit goes down, you better be ready. But a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's such a big irresponsibility to the gun owner that buys their firearm, they keep it in the nightstand, maybe they shoot once every few months or so. You're not doing yourself, a justice. So to answer your question, the easiest answer is training, right? And consistency. You have to train as much as you can with whoever you can. I fully think that people should seek out to different instructors and see what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and take a little bit from everybody.
Right.
And but it's consistency. So in a situation like a home invasion scenario, no one's going to rise to the occasion. They're going to fall to the lowest level of training.
Yep.
And so like you said, they can be a great marksman, but they've never been in a stressful environment. So it's really, that's what I try to bring to people in the home, is giving them realistic views of what things might look like in that scenario. And we try to make it as stressful as we can, but something as even putting a time limit on something is a stressor.
Yeah.
You see people start to fumble just because they're trying to make time.
Right.
So the smallest little thing will add the extra stress. So yeah, easiest answer is consistency and training, but also formulating a plan. So there's the debate on, do I keep my firearms loaded, unloaded, loaded but not chambered, things like that. And so the best answer is whatever you're going to be most consistent with, and the best the most you train with, but you need to train through the motion. So if you have a magazine in your firearm but you don't have it chambered, you need to train with, when I grab my gun, the first thing I'm doing is racking that slide. Now, pros and cons. It's more time, it's more steps you're going to have to take under pressure. But if you build the muscle memory, you're going to have a better chance of succeeding.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's really important. And one thing that I didn't realize was, it's like before you get in your first fight as a young kid. I don't know if you ever got into fights as a kid, but
it's been a while.
Yeah. but I remember my first fight that I can remember as a kid, me and just some other kid, the adrenaline rush that happened. It's like if you had asked me a day before, hey, what happened if Jimmy tried to fight you? Oh, I'd whip his ass.
Yeah.
But when it happens, your adrenaline goes and you start to get sloppy. And yeah, that's one thing that I didn't, before we started working together, I never really had run through in my mind, oh, you need a standard operating procedure for everything, and working through the muscle memory is super important. Just like getting in your car and you don't think about putting your seatbelt on, right?
Yeah, if you can have it be second nature, that's gonna how you're gonna be the most successful. And so, and again, you don't have to have someone like me come into your home to do this, right? These are things you can do on your own. You can do them while watching TV in your house, when you're just going through basic functionality. Or just, again, kind of formulating a plan of it's hard. You don't want to game the situation, right? Because you never know what's going to happen, and you can train and train and train and train and train. You can have every scenario run through your head, and then you could be in a deep sleep and someone breaks in and you don't even hear them, and you don't know until it's too late. That can happen. So you never want to game anything, because things are always going to be unexpected. But you can at least kind of pre-game,
right? If
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can take steps to at least know, I have my weapon here in this room, or I have one in this room. Or if you, let's say, you're sitting on your couch watching TV and someone breaks in when you're not near your firearm.
Right.
What do you have immediately? You have weapons all around you. I guarantee you, on your coffee table, you might have a mug.
Yeah.
Right. You have something that you can throw and possibly deter, or at least give you a fighting chance, where it's you send a barrage of things. Human nature is going to take action, and if someone throws something at your face, what are you going to do? You're going to try to protect yourself.
Yeah.
So if you are at least in the fighting mindset of, I can do something that will either allow me to retreat, allow me to get out and get away, or allow me to just get a minute to a second head start to the bedroom, to where my safe is, to where my firearm is. So, there's a lot of things you can do in your everyday life, or like, tell the scenario to a lot of people is like, you could be at a restaurant, right? Let's say you're at a restaurant with your family, 50 people, 10 people, 5 people, doesn't matter, and someone comes in trying to shoot up the place. You know, what would you do if, let's say, everybody was in the fighting mindset, and what would this person do if 50 people got up and all threw their chair at them?
Yeah.
You know, what would you do? You had 50 chairs coming flying at your face.
Right.
You know, you have the ability to at least kind of work things a little bit in your favor, but if you never train for it, if you never plan for it, your body's not going to know the right reaction.
Got it.
So again, building the muscle memory, and just every day, if you can just take a minute every day with, here are the things around me, and just be situationally aware with the weapons you have available.
Right.
That doesn't have to be your firearm. Got it.
Okay. So let's talk about home defense options, like shotguns, handguns, pistol carbines. What do you think? You know, what's your go-to? Is it a handgun? Is it a rifle? Like,
yeah, this will forever be an endless debate.
Yeah.
Because it all comes down to the individual, right? So the best home defense weapon is the one that you're most proficient with.
Got it.
And that's not only shooting, but knowing the functionality.
Yeah.
Doing reloads, being able to work through malfunctions, whatever it may be. So, for me personally, my go-to is a handgun one. So, all right, you got shotguns, you got pistols, you have rifles. All have pros, all have cons.
Right.
Right. So, the shotgun debate. I don't shoot shotgun all that much.
Okay.
I have one that kind of just sits in the safe. I take it out every once in a while. I don't train with it enough for me to want to use that as my personal home defense weapon.
Yep.
But you're looking at, with shotguns, you're going to have less penetration power than you would with, a 223 round. So you're going to have less worry about what's going to happen past the target.
Yep.
Which is, a good thing. But also with shotguns, you're going to be limited on ammo capacity.
Yeah.
Most magazine tubes, you're looking at maybe 5-6 shells, maybe in plus one in the chamber. So you're going to be limited on ammo.
Yep.
With handguns, right, you have the pros of being a small, compact package. It fits, in the nightstand, wherever, under the pillow, which I don't recommend.
Yeah.
Either way, it's a small package. Shooting pistols is hard. I mean, it's the hardest platform to shoot, right? You only have 2 points of contact on the weapon. There's, you need to have a really good trigger pull as well, side alignment. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong with,
right.
if you're not used to shooting pistol. There's a lot of things that can happen. But yeah, for me, I shoot pistol quite often. And
yeah.
It's small. It's not going to hinder me going through doorways and hallways and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people love an AR platform. It's going to be extremely reliable. It's going to be very accurate.
Yeah.
You have 4 points of contact on the weapon. You're going to have less movement with trigger pull if you have a bad trigger pull. But now you're looking at a larger platform as well. Same with the shotgun. You're going to have a large platform to where you need to know how to maneuver through doorways, through hallways. You get more capacity with ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
You got to worry about the penetration power as well.
Yeah.
What type of rounds do you have in your magazine?
Especially if you live in like an apartment or
right,
something.
Right. If you live in an apartment, right, there's no safe direction.
Yeah.
You might have people below you, above you,
yep.
on either side.
Do hollow points help versus full metal jacket?
So hollow points are going to be they're going to do a better job if you hit your target.
Okay.
Right. So as long as you're hitting your threat, they're designed to penetrate through. They break apart.
Okay.
They're going to tear more tissue. But if you're missing your target, you're still going through walls, unless you're maybe you're lucky enough to hit a stud. You might get some deflection. That's really your hope on that. But
it's crazy.
Yeah, ballistics are like they're not my specialty by any means.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a very basic knowledge on it, but it's something you need to be aware of.
Right.
when you're in this situation, everyone is in the moment, and so taking steps. And we just talked about maybe some ways to hopefully beef up your home, to be a deterrence, to when you're in the fight, to what comes after.
Right.
You got to think about legally what comes after as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you have firearms insurance, which
right.
every gun owner should have.
Right.
And then even within your home, you gotta think about where are your loved ones in this situation?
Right.
You know, like, are you going to be shooting past a target into your kid's room?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But it's hard to think about everything when you're in the moment, because you're in survival mode.
Now, when you're training in the SEAL teams, do they do a lot of war games where they kind of do, like, you know, two different teams trying to figure out what they would do in a real life situation?
So we didn't do a lot. So
Okay.
we usually, the only time we would do that is when we would have like a final training exercise within a certain block of training.
Okay.
So like I mentioned before, when I was working at the CQB school, you know, we were doing nothing but constant force on force training. We hardly ever did that when I was active. You know,
Really?
we would spend 2, 3, 4 weeks doing all of our close quarter stuff. You know, we start doing it dry. We're, you know, maneuvering as a fire team, as a platoon, through the building. Then, you know, you go up to live fire where you're actually, you know, you're shooting at paper targets, and then you'd end on, now you have role players. Now you have your ammunition or whatever, and then you put it all into play.
Right.
Which for me is backwards.
Okay.
Because you spend all this time building up the muscle memory without having, again, that projectile that somebody's shooting back at you. And, you know, Mike Tyson said it the best. You know, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Right.
It's the same concept.
Yep.
Right? You can be a super flowy, smooth unit, but the second the shots start firing, your natural state of survival says, hold on, maybe I'm not going to rush into this room just yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, in my opinion, it's totally backwards. You should be doing the force on force consistently. But yeah, we wouldn't really do scenarios until we were at the end of whichever block of training we were going through.
Got it. Okay, cool. So I want to circle back, because a lot of people on the firearms that you get. I just got a pistol caliber carbine Ruger PC9, which I'm super pumped about. But when it comes to rifle versus shotgun, we'll just take handgun out for now.
Okay.
Would you prefer a Ruger, like PC9 kind of pistol carbine, or a shotgun? And I know that it's case by case basis and whatever you train with, but based on whether it's, you know, because I mean, you might only have 5 shots from your shotgun, and it's going to be probably harder to reload that than just switch a mag out, right?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'm always going to go for like an AR platform.
Okay.
Or something that's, you know, semi-automatic. You get higher capacity, because even with, you know, the 9mm rifles, you can have a 30-round mag that they make, or even, you know, 60-round drum.
Yeah.
If you're able to get one.
Not here, not in
here.
California.
Yeah, we definitely don't have it here. But yeah, for me personally, I want to worry less about having to do reloads. And I mean, if you're shooting 30 rounds anyway, you know, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
Either you're a god awful shot, or maybe you're in a riot scenario, right?
Right.
So, yeah, if you're blowing through multiple magazines in your home, you probably have a pretty crappy situation on your hands.
Right.
And at that point, yeah, me personally, I don't want to have to worry about having 5, 6 shells in my gun and then having to load them one by one. You know, it's not going to be as efficient for me when you're in the fight.
Sure.
So again, that's just me. I don't train with shotguns often. I'm sure there's some people that are, you know, incredibly fast with them and incredibly accurate, and might be their weapon of choice. That's great. Also, you know, I don't want to be blowing holes all through my walls as well. You know, if I can hit my target with better accuracy with an AR platform, for me personally, I would just personally choose that.
Right.
So, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
You know, it's gonna be different for every individual person. You know, you have people that just grew up with shotguns, right? But maybe they have decades worth of shooting shotgun experience, and so that just might be what they prefer.
Okay.
But there's also no saying you can be proficient in all of them. So,
right. Okay.
I would say take the time take the time on each platform and just see what works best for you.
Cool.
And
the common theme here is train.
It's always going to be the number one answer. It doesn't
Okay.
matter what tool, weapon you have. You can have a, you know, baseball bat. You can, you know, because there's, you know, we can talk about some less lethal options, and for the house as well. But you know, each are going to come with their, you know, their own set of cons as well. But yeah, it doesn't matter what weapon system. You can have a magazine rolled up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're not going to bop them on the head like they're a bad dog, but you roll up a magazine super tight.
Yeah. Oh, an actual
use
magazine.
the top,
Okay.
right?
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm talking about like on the coffee table magazine.
Yep.
Right. You can roll that thing up tight and use the top of it.
Yep.
You can jam that up in someone's nose, someone's chin, and still do some damage. It's funny to think about, but it's something.
Yeah.
But there's some people that are like, I could never shoot somebody, and one, they've probably never been in that life-threatening situation where that might change if they ever had to experience that. But there's things that you can do as far as like non-lethal options. You can have pepper spray, for instance. But one, you can think about you're inside your home.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have any type of mist spray, that's going to get everywhere. If the person has like glasses or any type of eye protection, and you don't hit your threat where you need to,
right?
You might not be doing anything. There's tasers as well, where with all these options, you are now limiting the distance you're going to have to be with your threat as well, which obviously distance is going to be your friend. But in a scenario where you have like a taser, you got to worry about if their clothing is super thick, right? Maybe they have a jacket on, sweatshirt, and you don't get full penetration. And then, you're kind of screwed right there as well.
Yeah.
But there's things, if you have like a baseball bat, like there's things you can do to set yourself up for success as far as positioning and where you're going to be. If you are able to, even though like with my training, like I teach my clients the actual movement on doing room clearings throughout your house, but that's not always the best answer, right? The best answer for you might be, hey, I'm grabbing my kids and my wife and we're going into the bedroom. I'm watching the door while she's on the phone with the cops. And so at that point, if you have a firearm, you can be, tucked away at a separate corner, watching that door, waiting for it to open. But if you have something like a baseball bat, distance is not your friend at that point. Right. Because if someone's coming in with a firearm and you're hiding in the corner with a baseball bat, not in striking distance, there's nothing you're going to do in that situation. So, knowing that, hey, I now need to be at the door. Maybe I'm kneel down at the door waiting for it to open, and now you can have at least a better chance of being able to strike first, go for the gun, whatever it may be.
Got it.
But you just got to know that, whatever platform you go with, whatever system it is, you got to know its limitations.
Right.
And then you got to know the correct way to use them.
Okay. So let's talk about medical. Let's say that you get into a gunfight with somebody in your house, you get shot in the arm, tourniquet, pressure, like what's your go-to for that kind of scenario?
I have a ton of tourniquets around the house. So I need to practice more.
Yeah.
That being said, I haven't put one on in quite some time.
Yeah.
But that's a tough question because it kind of boils down to, what the injury is.
Right.
Can you fight through it? Is it, how life-threatening is it?
Yep.
If you get shot in the arm, you're still capable of being in the fight.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So that's a tricky situation if you have no medical training. There's plenty of companies that do tac med stuff.
Right.
Where, they go through the whole putting on tourniquets, packing wounds, things like that, that is relevant to this type of situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so yesterday I was driving to jiu-jitsu and I just had this weird feeling all day. Like something, just stay in the house. Don't go anywhere today. I don't know what it was. Full moon, whatever you want to call it, but I just had a weird feeling. And I'm driving and I'm on the freeway going California freeway speed, and I'm in the fast lane and this giant wooden board flies up in the air off the ground, comes straight for me, and at the last second kind of curves to the right, smashes the front of my car, smashes the window on the side. And it could have been, I'm telling you, dude, if that had hit me straight on, it would have been really bad. But I had a tourniquet right there, which would have been good, but only one. So do you think that people should carry more than one tourniquet, a first aid kit, everywhere they go, every vehicle? What do you think?
I think it's safe to have, if you have the room, and even just have basic stuff, right, where you don't have to have anything super elaborate, but it all comes down to, do you know how to use it? Right. So I know people that carry med kits that have never gone through any type of TAC medicine course or anything, and it's like when it comes down to it, when they have to use it, are they even going to know how to, how to apply whatever they're having to use? So again, comes down to training, right? I think it's good. It's always good to have one in the vehicle if you have, again, you've had the space for it. Is it realistic for some people? Probably not. I don't know. I mean, I think the likelihood of you getting into any type of at least firearms related accident is really low. But there's like you said, there's things that could happen. Car wreck, things like that.
Right.
We actually got rear-ended yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Everybody good?
Everyone's good.
Okay.
And it was very.
So we both yesterday had them weird. That's weird.
Yeah, should have stayed home, right?
Yeah.
But we were driving back from our baby's 2-week appointment, so we're with our newborn.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you very much. And luckily, it wasn't anything hard. We were at a red light, and the lady behind us wasn't paying attention, and the lane to the left of us was a turn lane, so that started going, and so she just saw the movement out of the corner of her eye, decided she was going to go, and just ran into us.
Got it. Okay.
So luckily, it was very minor. Nobody was hurt.
Sure.
She was very shaken up, but not a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's always good to have, right? If you never know what the scenario is going to be, but you need to know how to use it, and that's going to be the answer for everything.
Right.
Do you need more than one thing? There might be overkill. If you have something for everybody in the car, you might be looking at a giant med bag in your back seat.
Get a trailer.
Yeah, but I would say having just at least the basics, at least having like one tourniquet would be good. But yeah, again, you got to know how to use it.
Sure. So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about what happened in Israel, and I want to talk about how people should be prepared in case something like that happens here. People always have this thought of that won't happen to me because I'm here.
Right.
But it's crazy because mass shootings that happen in public, they happen, right? What happened in Israel is something that I don't think anybody thought would have happened. It happened. And I feel like a lot of people that were on the other side of that felt safe and secure where they were, and it happened. So what are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on people that are coming through the border and not knowing just some of the stuff around that?
Unfortunately, it's just a matter of time. So I don't think people are going to be coming over on like little parachutes and have a whole like Red Dawn scenario. I don't see that happening here. Mm-hmm. But you're extremely naive if you don't believe that those threats are already here.
Right.
Especially with administration in the past few years of the open borders, these people are already in our country.
Right.
And in my opinion, again, just my opinion, that it's just a matter of time.
Yep.
How big of a scale, I don't know. Again, that's why I would never going to be in a major city. I would never live in a major city. The whole "it's not going to happen to us" mentality has to go, because right. The reality is these people are already in our country, and it's just a matter of time when we're going to see the next 9/11.
And I don't think when you say these people, I know that there's already people that are going to watch this that are going to go, "Oh, he's racist, he's this." I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't think you're talking about the hardworking people coming from El Salvador, Mexico,
no, of course.
Venezuela.
Right, yeah. I mean, obviously not every person coming through the border is a terrorist.
Right.
I mean, that's fact and plain and simple, right?
Yeah.
People are still looking for that American dream that may or may not exist anymore.
Right.
So, but the reality is, when you have loads and loads of nothing but military-aged males coming through at in large groups, the realistic answer is, they're not immigrants coming to, work the farms.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and if you look, it seems like we're being infiltrated not just by people, but by ideology, by drugs, fentanyl coming from China through Mexico and through Canada. Does it seem like
in policy? Yeah. Don't.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like things into looking at how military and police departments are run, right? Like it's like every bit of our society from one to another is being eroded from the inside out, right? And so is that kind of how you see it, or is that not where you...
Yeah, so we're at a point right now where, good men created easy times, and we are transferring from that easy times that are creating weak men.
Mm-hmm.
And, being in America, and especially the time we have been in here, there's a lot of privileges we get. We won the lottery being born in this country.
Yeah.
And that has been at risk for a while. You know, when you do think about policy administrations that have weakened our country, that you can see now, you know, we're so weak as a nation, you know, other nations laugh at us.
Right.
And again, you got to be really naive to think that we're not going to be caught up in a situation anytime soon. Because you look at the people now where everything is, you know, look at all the people sympathizing with Hamas and these terrorists that were literally going through villages, decapitating babies, killing women, children, taking hostages. There's people out here that are sympathizing with them, protesting for them, when they have no idea the type of people that, you know, these terrorists are. Like if you were to come across them, they wouldn't spare your life for anything. You know, and it's very surprising to see. And the whole Palestine-Israel thing, I mean, that's a whole conversation itself. That's, we can go back biblically and why everything is so backwards right now. But from what that stemmed from is, you know, the Palestinians are the real occupiers. Right. And you know, I know our administration is just pushing for
Can't wait to see the comments on this. It's gonna be great.
Like, you know, the administration is pushing for the whole two-state solution, and that will never be a solution, because when you have one side that wants to wipe the other side off the map, you know, they don't want to live in harmony. Right. So it's not a solution, and it never will be. But either way, you know, not trying to offend anybody, but you know, if you're offended, nobody cares. And there's just so many people that aren't going to be prepared. And when something happens, you know, they're going to be blaming everybody else around them. And it's just, we're in that time where nobody's taking responsibility, you know, for their actions. No one's taking responsibility for being prepared for the worst that's to come, because it is going to come. You know, you can mark my words there. It's just a matter of time.
When it does, how do you think it would pop off? Like, what do you think? Do you think it's wide-scale terror attacks at the same time? You know, I mean, we've got to have. I mean, they've busted sleeper cells all through this country multiple times.
You know, obviously, I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them. You know, I would definitely be ready for a multi-attack situation. You know, across the entire country, because they're across the entire country. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was like that. And you know, they're going to have the most impact when you have multiple things happening at once, and then you create more chaos, and then it's harder to control. So, I think that's a definite like big possibility that will happen. Right. But yeah, I don't know. And all I know is I need to be able to take care of my family. Yep. Our home, if we're able to stay in our home, you know, have a group of people that you can trust and rely on, have food, water stored. Yep. Because even at the very least, you know, if we get into a point where something as small as another pandemic happens, people are going to go nuts. Yeah. Right. You know, how crazy was it during?
Dude, that was when I mean, that's when we started working together, and that was when when the riots happened down here, and my girlfriend and I got caught in one. We were just trying to walk from the office back to the house, and thousands of people were running through here. You know, it happened so fast, and the mob mentality doesn't matter who you are. If you get caught up on the wrong side of that, it's crazy. You know, my girlfriend and I went to the top of this parking garage when this whole group was running. The cops are out there doing riot control, and we just went to the top of this parking garage and just watched, and it's just like absolute
the chaos.
It's kind of cool. Like, holy, it's like a System of a Down song, like right there, you know. But it was just absolutely chaotic, and it's like, holy shit! Imagine if these people were hungry and thirsty.
Yeah, I mean, you should realistically have at least a few months worth of rations as far as food and water goes, toiletries, you know, whatever
toilet
basic
paper.
Toilet paper for sure, right? All the basic things that you're going to need to get by without having to go out into public, right? Because it's going to be a disaster. And so, yeah, you saw what happened with, you know, something like a virus. You know, what's going to happen when there's a different active threat happening. Yeah. And so if you're able, I just need to be able to protect my home, my family, be able to stay indoors and not have to go out into all the chaos. but also have a plan on where you're going to go, because if you're in a city and you need to get out, what does that look like? Are they occupying freeways? What happened when all these people were blocking the freeways? There's things you got to consider, where if travel is a necessity,
yep,
that's going to be a bad day.
Yeah.
Not saying that everyone needs to go move out of the city, because it's not realistic, but be aware and be prepared as best as you possibly can be.
People are always like, why, you buy all these toys. It's like, well, I have a Jeep, I have a truck, I have a dirt bike with a, I have a decent way of getting out if I need to. Right. I can throw the dirt bike on the back of my Jeep, and at least,
just put a snowplow on the front of your Jeep.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. With the, remember that guy that made the homemade tank with a caterpillar, and he went around because he didn't pay some parking tickets or something. I don't remember what that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
This sounds guy, great though.
He had a bulldozer, and in his shed, he had some problems with the government, and I think was screwed over by the government pretty bad and had enough, and he went on this tear. We'll put a clip up here. It was depending on where you stand with it, it was badass no matter who you are, because it was just this one guy that kind of gave it back. And so what do you think about bugging out? Should people have a plan?
Everyone should have a plan. Like, we're in that day and age where, unfortunately, everyone should have a plan to hightail it out.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is, and that's reality, and you just have to accept it. We have something as simple as we each have a bug out bag. If it got to that point, to where it has food, it has water, shelter capabilities, some extra warm clothing, things like that, ammunition. Mm-hmm. We just earlier talked about when it comes to ammunition, that stuff's heavy. So
22,
so 22 might be the way to go. But either way, we have it available, and then we every so often check it, update it, make sure food hasn't expired, stuff like that. Have a way to cook food if you need it. Filters for water, things like that. But the more you get, heavier it's going to be, right? It's right. You got to think realistically, like, what can you actually sustain, as far as like if you're trekking up and over the mountains here,
extra socks.
Right. So raincoats, tarps, things like that. But unfortunately, we're just in that day and age where you have to be prepared somewhat, right? Sure. You don't have to be like the crazy prepper people that are just every day of their life is just waiting for the disaster to happen. You still live your lives, right? We're supposed to be living normally, but on the side, you just got to be mentally aware of what could happen.
Well, I used to think that was all just people being paranoid and almost like...
Well, there was a point in time where it was.
Yeah. But now it's like, dude, if you don't have a plan, you're just unprepared. Before it kind of seemed a little wild to have that, but now it's like, man, and things change that quick. It
is fast.
If you could talk to yourself in like 2016, do you think you would believe we are where we are that fast?
No. 2016, definitely not. We had a stronger country back at that point, so I think. Obviously, there's been people here for a while. We didn't have completely solid borders or anything back then, but it's just the amount that's coming in nowadays is just astronomical and kind of terrifying if you really think about it. If you stop and think about it, it's a scary thought to know what has infiltrated our country.
Right.
But going back then, that was 7 years ago. That's not that long ago, and I would have never thought that we'd be where we are today.
Right.
But here we are, and so but you have to adapt. So times change, you have to change. Your mentality is the biggest thing, that you have to be mentally prepared for anything that will happen.
Right.
And then God forbid you have things like medications. That you're going to need to take with you, that need to be refrigerated, stuff like that. It's not a fun thought, but the more prepared you are now, the better off you're going to be. Obviously, you never know when things are going to happen, how they're going to happen, what's going to happen. But if you just have a basic plan, right? Yep. And you can just sit down with somebody and just kind of create a small strategy, get together with the family, or if you have, extended family in the area, like, see what everyone can provide and to come up with, a solid plan. And people might think you're crazy, but not when it happens.
Yeah. They're gonna be coming to you. With you.
Yeah. How many? I had a whole handful of people that when the 2020 stuff was happening, they're like, "Dude, can I borrow a gun?" I'm like, "No, you can't borrow a gun.
Yeah, you can go buy one."
Yeah. Well, at that time it was hard because they're flying off the shelves. It was actually really hard to get a firearm. And then ammo is crazy expensive now.
Yep.
But it was the people that didn't believe in it, and the more you tell them, they are like, whatever, you're crazy, and 2020 happens, and all that went out the window.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least a lot of people are opening up to the reality, and I've seen a lot of people change their minds, and it's good that people are being open-minded, because I think that's the American thing, right? Like if you're not open to new data and new ideas, then you're screwed, because things change, and so I try to be open-minded about things. And if you had met me 10 years ago, it would be a completely different person. And so guys, I really encourage you to hit up Perry, hit up anybody that does this kind of training in your area. But the common theme here seems to be train in your medical stuff, train in your firearm stuff, train in any kind of scenario-based stuff. And Perry, where can people follow you, and your website to get on your newsletter, fortifiedmeasures.com?
Yeah, fortifiedmeasures.com. We have a bunch of different training packages that we offer, as low as, I think the shortest one we have is a 2-day, which sounds like a long time, but it's just 5 hours total of training.
Yep.
But again, it's set up for the people that maybe just need a little refresher, but then there's the people that need consistent training. And again, you can get it from me, you get it from somebody else, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only person that comes to your home, so that's that's a plus. So no dealing with range fees and traveling and having to buy expensive ammo, and you don't even need to use your own firearms. Again, we come with a whole suite of everything. So it's really, we try to make it as convenient and as user friendly as we possibly can. But fortifiedmeasures.com is where you can get all the information. And then we're on Instagram, which is fortified_measures on Instagram, or my personal page is just Perry Yee, all one word.
And guys, it's going to be in the show description, so wherever you're listening to / watching this, it'll be in the link in the description or somewhere down there. All this stuff will be tagged.
Yeah, and it should be coming here really soon. But like you just mentioned, the newsletter. So even if you just head to the website here within the next couple weeks and sign up for the newsletter, I'll be sending everybody just a 2-page PDF of simple, basic things, some that we discussed at the beginning of the show, of what you can do just to help fortify your home on the outside and on the inside, to hopefully make you more of a hard target for people, and feel just a little bit more safe and comfortable inside your own home. I mean, your home is where you should feel the most comfortable.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's so many people that are taking that away from us.
Yeah.
And that's to include our politicians and our, right now for the San Diego County area, and this is coming directly from some agency people in the area and department people.
Yep.
The average response time for a priority 1 call is 45 minutes.
Yep.
And you have to realize that even if it was 1 minute, right? When seconds matter, police are minutes away.
Yep.
And you are always going to be your first responder, your own first responder. The police aren't there to come save you. They're there to come clean up the mess.
Yep.
Hopefully prevent further damage. But we're at that point, where criminals know that they can commit a crime. Maybe they get caught, but they're going to be released the next day. There's no more consequences anymore. There's all these consequences for law-abiding citizens, but not for the criminals. Everything is backwards. So, and that's the reality. Again, you may not think it. You're super naive if you don't, but I do hope and pray that nobody's ever have to experience something like that, or be put in that situation. But if you are, be prepared. And fortunately, we're in the time where you have to be. I mean, it's you've always had to be your own first responder.
Yep.
Again, even when you have high officer count in your area, again, it does matter how much time it takes them to get there. The damage is probably already going to be done. So just something to think about.
FortifiedMeasures.com, guys. Go follow Perry, reach out, get connected with him, and we're about to do some training. So
let's do it.
Let's get it. Cool. Thanks for
I
coming
appreciate
down,
it.
dude.